Republican Senator Ted Cruz of the border state of Texas, member of the Foreign Relations and Judiciary Committees. I want to go straight to you, Senator, and get your take on she's in your state.
Well, Harris, good morning. It's good to be with you. Yes, Kamala has come to Texas. She is the sitting border czar. She is directly responsible for the crisis at our southern border, for the open borders we've had for 3.5 years, for the invasion of 11.5 million people. She was put in charge, and she did nothing. As you rightly noted, she's been to the border a total of one time in her 4 years as vice president. She went to El Paso. They cleaned it up. So she saw no illegal aliens. She didn't go to what was then the epicenter of the invasion. That was the Rio Grande Valley. She couldn't be bothered to go there. She didn't go to Eagle Pass, which is where the crisis moved next. She didn't go to Del Rio. I was in Del Rio on a day. Del Rio is a very small town on the Rio Grande River. It's about 30,000 people live in Del Rio. I was there on a day when in a single day there were more than 10,000 Haitian illegal immigrants crossing into Del Rio. Imagine for a second 1/3 of the population of your entire city entering in a single day. Kamala Harris was nowhere to be found. Instead, she's right now in my hometown of Houston talking to the national teachers unions because what is her priority? Her priority is opposing school choice. Her priority is keeping kids trapped in failed schools. I think education freedom is the civil rights issue of the 21st century. And Kamala Harris's message to low-income kids, to African-American children, to Hispanic children is you are trapped and there is no hope coming from the Democrats. Because why? They're more interested in the dollars and the political foot soldiers of the teachers unions than they are in the children who are being left behind. Kamala has zero interest in actually securing the border because she looks at 11 million illegal immigrants and she sees future Democrat votes as far as the eye can see.
Senator, two things on that. The way you put that, civil rights issue of the 21st century. Well, when did we find that out? During the lockdowns, when our kids were in our homes trying to learn on devices, even though we'd been told that too much time on a device for a kid would damage their brain. But there they were during the pandemic, and school unions had all of those things they wanted. Well, first it was vaccines, and then it was more money, and then they needed this. They were like the princess and the pea. And so she's not winning today, even though she's not talking about the border. What you're saying is she's not winning on the teaching issue either. The House has just passed that resolution condemning Vice President Kamala Harris and her handling of the border. And the vote count, Senator, 220 to 196. Your immediate reaction to the breaking news?
Well, look, I mean, I think her performance is the worst performance of any vice president in history. She was given charge of one issue, and that was to be border czar. And it was a spectacular, historic failure that has resulted in death and misery and despair. When you go down to South Texas, nobody defends what is happening. South Texas historically has been a Democrat region of our state. It is turning red because when you see the dead bodies every day, migrants dying, when you see children, little boys and little girls who have been brutalized, when you see women who have been repeatedly raped by human traffickers, when you see Americans dying of fentanyl overdoses, you cannot defend Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's open border. And Harris, I'm going to make a prediction. She's getting ready to speak to the teachers unions. I'm going to make two predictions about what she says. Number one, she will not use the words learning loss. Under the Democrats, they shut schools down all across the country. Tens of millions of school kids did not have in-person school for over a year. And as a result of Democrat shutdowns, we have seen the biggest increase in the racial gap, the biggest learning loss, and the students who were hurt the most under Kamala Harris's policies were African-American students and Hispanic students that have suffered the single greatest learning loss since we've been measuring it. She will not say a word about that. That's prediction number one. And here's prediction number two. My opponent, Colin Allred, a very liberal Democrat running against me. You're not going to see Colin Allred anywhere near Kamala Harris. He is running and hiding. I think he actually just signed up for witness protection. He doesn't want to be seen with her. I have suggested I am happy to pay for a tour of Colin Allred and Kamala Harris, tour the state of Texas, go down to the Rio Grande Valley together and celebrate her record as border czar because it's disastrous and it's hurt the people of Texas, which is why Colin Allred wants to be nowhere near her.
Look, your state has been so impacted, and your passion certainly exudes what that has been like. but also just the hard truth of the federal government went after your state and your governor to try to stop you all from stemming the flow of illegals. I mean, the journey that we have been on in the last 36 to 39 months is epic with this administration. Biden-Harris administration, he's not on the ticket anymore, but he says he's going to stay in the White House, and she's right there with him. All right, let's get to this. Later today, President Biden will meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Vice President Kamala Harris is also set to meet with him, but they're meeting separately. Now, I thought they were going to work on things together. We haven't been told, actually. I want to ask, why couldn't they do that? Sometimes they tell us it's scheduling. Both of those meetings fall just one day after all of that anti-Israel, Jewish hate, American hate. They hate America as well. All of that chaos in our nation's capital while the Prime Minister of Israel was speaking to Congress. Explosive, destructive. Rioters covering buildings and monuments in blood-red paint, trying to breach the Capitol police lines and burned our nation's flag. Congressman Brian Mast, a combat veteran who lost both of his legs working as a bomb disposal expert, posted this: "I fought and bled for the American flag. My friends lost their lives in the battle for American flag." And he said this:
"Absolutely disgusted, outraged. All of America should be, and everybody should be looking at this, tying this directly to politics. Donald Trump embraces the American flag, hugs it, loves the flag that drapes over the coffins of our service members, the supporters of Kamala Harris. It's this binary. They tear down the American flag and they burn it."
And these anti-Israel rioters also tore down American flags, replaced them with Palestinian flags, and House Speaker Mike Johnson and other GOP lawmakers then raised our flag again after the protest damage. They went out after dark. You see them there last evening, and they made sure that our flag was flying. Senator Cruz, my father fought. I understand the premise of free speech and free expression. We're in a place now, though, and some of those protesters would even tell you beneath their keffiyehs, they hate us. That they're part of the regime that would want to see us annihilated. They support the terrorists, Hamas. Your thoughts?
Look, all of that is exactly right. You do have a right to free speech. You don't have a right to engage in violence. You don't have a right to vandalize public displays. What they did there was plainly illegal. They hate America. They're chanting in support of Hamas. They spray painted and vandalized "Hamas is coming." They are celebrating murderers and rapists and people who want to murder America. And they're saying Hamas is coming here. They want Hamas terrorists to murder Americans. And I got to say, all of this was happening at the exact same time Prime Minister Netanyahu was speaking to the joint session of Congress. I was there in the front row listening to the speech. It was an historic speech. Afterwards, I spent about 45 minutes one-on-one with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He's a very good friend. I told him, I said, I thought the speech was historic, and I think it was Churchillian, and that's an adjective I have not used for any other world leaders. It was Churchillian because it had the gravitas to understand that Israel right now faces an existential threat, but the terrorists that Israel is fighting, they hate America too. There's a reason they chant death to Israel and death to America. Yeah. When Israel is killing Hamas terrorists, they are saving American lives. And I got to say, it was utterly disgraceful. The scores of Democrats who boycotted Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech, including Kamala Harris. She's the vice president. Normally, when a head of state addresses a joint session of Congress, you have the Speaker of the House and the vice president sitting behind them. She refused to attend. And so think what this is saying. The presumptive Democrat nominee won't even listen to the democratically elected leader of the nation of Israel. The Democrat Party, Kamala Harris, look, I'm not going to say that Kamala Harris was at Union Station burning Netanyahu in effigy, as you're showing right there, pulling down the American flag, burning the American flag, raising the Palestinian flag. She wasn't physically there, but I'll tell you this, her sympathies are much more with those anti-American, anti-Semitic radicals than they are with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and that is sad today's Democrat Party is terrified of and captive to the radical anti-Semitic fringe, and they want the votes. Kamala Harris and the Democrats want the votes of those America-hating radicals. I think that's a really sad state of affairs.
Well, look, I mean, look at where they are with the uncommitted during the primary and the both in Minnesota and Michigan. So they know they have to do some flexing. When you write Hamas is coming, Senator, can you imagine how that makes Jewish Americans even feel? Like it's just a special kind of hate and cruelty. I do want to mention this because reflexively, the left brought this up, and so I want to address it. Senator and vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance was also not at Netanyahu's speech yesterday, and the Trump campaign put this out, statement, saying that Senator Vance stands steadfastly with the people of Israel and their right to defend their homeland, eradicate terrorist threats, and bring back their countrymen held hostage. He will not, however, be in attendance for Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech to Congress as he has duties to fulfill as the Republican nominee for vice president. So that went out before the speech yesterday. And I just want to get your thoughts really on where we are, because in that, we heard about the hostages. Didn't hear about that from Kamala Harris or the president. Haven't heard about it in some time.
No, they've been completely silent about the hostages, including the American hostages. And you know what? Yesterday, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris allowed that disgusting display of vandalism to occur. The National Park Service has jurisdiction there. That's under the federal government. They allow these radicals to burn the American flag, to spray paint, and they've allowed pro-Hamas anti-Semitic radicals to do this all throughout Washington.
Do you think that's dangerous?
Of course it's dangerous, and it is because they side with the radicals. I can tell you this right now. If they come to Texas and try to do the same thing, we will throw their butts in jail because we will enforce the law, we will arrest them, we will put them in handcuffs and put them in jail. You don't have the right to break the law. And where these displays are happening, whether it's New York City, whether it is California, it is places where Democrats are in charge and they will not enforce the law because they agree with the radicals. You do not have a right to engage in violence. You don't have a right to threaten Jews. And the bizarre thing, you know, a couple of days ago, CNN was talking about who Kamala Harris might pick as a VP nominee. And they were mentioning Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And John King on CNN just very matter of fact said, well, obviously it'd be a problem because Shapiro's Jewish and in the Democrat Party, that's a real problem. What does it say that CNN just matter of fact reports that being Jewish is no longer acceptable in today's Democrat Party? That is an enormous failing on the party, and not a single Democrat spoke out against it because it's reality.
How does that not get complete pushback from the party that's maligned by what you're saying, from not just liberal media, which would be complicit in that moment?
Yeah, I don't even think. The sad thing is, I don't even think CNN was trying to malign them. I think they were just reporting an obvious fact, which is there is a pro-Hamas
they could have said it's a problem
of the Democrat Party.
They could have said that. All right. Senator Cruz, thank you so very much. You hit a lot of topics today. I appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks, Harris. Appreciate it.